show. In 2019, Akshay Kumar starred in 4 successful films. Shahid Kapoor delivered one of the biggest hits of his career, and Ranveer Singh led his humble feature about a rapper from Mumbai slums to box office glory. 3 years, multiple COVID waves, an OTT revolution, and a series of South Indian mega blockbusters later, the tables have turned. Ranveer Singh has delivered a disastrous Jaish Bhai Jordar, Shahid Kapoor has tanked with his jersey, and Akshay Kumar has given his third dud of the year with Raksha Bandhan, after Samrat Prithviraj and Bachchan Pandey. It is a messy year for the Hindi film industry, which has seen only 3 successes with Gangubai Kathiawad, Bhool Bhulaiya 2 and The Kashmir Files, even as much-awaited, big-budgeted Bollywood films bite the dust. Amir Khan's Laal Singh Chaddha, despite the expanse of its canvas and the star billing of its lead, has failed to find an audience at theatres. There is concern, questions and skepticism. Are unreasonable budgets of Hindi films the reason for these projects failing? Is the industry bankrolling poor scripts? Have South Indian films, especially S.S. Rajamouli's Telugu epic RRR and the Yash starrer Kannada actioner KGF Chapter 2, cracked the code? Or what has emerged as a crucial talking point today? Do star fees need reassessment? These are the questions that we will answer in this episode. And to do that, joining us is Justin Joseph Rao, who writes on entertainment for the Indian Express. So Justin, before we even begin answering these very important questions, I want you to explain how exactly a film, more specifically, a Bollywood film, makes its money.
Right. So, Anant, it's actually broadly divided into several modes of sort of recovery. Your primary is box office return. That's the crucial barometer of sort of defining a film's success or failure. Apart from box office, we have satellite and music rights, then we have OTT rights, there's also overseas distribution, etc. But to sort of break it down, box office is where the real challenge is, where the real verdict comes out. For example, if your film is made on a budget of 40 crores, and if it ends up doing a business of 80 crores at the box office, that's a hit film. Anything under 40 is not a hit film. It's, of course, flop or average, depending on however close to 40 they've sort of come. Anything above 40, depending on how far they go, that's your hit, super hit, blockbuster verdict. A producer on a film earns from these modes of avenues. Box office is your primary. Secondary, of course, is your satellite rights. That is the permission to have your film on TV. Those rights are very crucial because these are very lucrative modes of payment. A producer usually earns quite a chunk of their money from satellite, music, and of course now OTT. Before the OTT revolution happened in India, primarily satellite, that is the TV, and music rights were plum properties. And if your film has a bigger star, if your film ends up being a good film at the end, the chances of selling it to a TV channel will, of course, be a lot more than if you had like an average product in your hand or with a lesser star. These are broadly the domestic rights that they have, the domestic avenues of payment. Otherwise, then, of course, we have overseas distribution. That, of course, though, Anant, depends on the kind of film that's coming out. For example, a Laal Singh Chaddha today, headlined by Amir Khan, has done much better business in overseas than what it is doing in India currently. If I'm not wrong, it's just about touching 50 as we speak, or maybe it has crossed 50 now. But in overseas, in the same amount of time, it was already at 40, 43. So there's barely any gap between the India earnings of Laal Singh Chaddha and what it's doing overseas.
Justin says it really depends a lot on the subject matter of the film and if it clicks with the audience overseas. For example, Akshay Kumar's Raksha Bandhan, which released at the same time as Amir Khan's Laal Singh Chaddha, is faring very badly in the international market, and mostly because of the content.
And of course, right now there is also pay-per-view system, but it's still at a very nascent stage. I believe last year Salman Khan, during the pandemic, had released one of his films, Radhe, direct on pay-per-view via Z. And I don't think that model really worked, because if an audience of Salman Khan wants to pay to watch him, they would rather pay to watch him on the big screen with claps and whistle and that euphoria, and not really on a small screen when you're paying to watch a Salman Khan film, and that too the film itself was an average affair. So it didn't really translate, which is why pay-per-view system in Bollywood really hasn't picked up any steam.
Yeah, right. So that's about how the producers make money from films. Now, what about the actors? I mean, what are the most common payment agreements that one sees in Bollywood?
The three Khans, Shah Rukh, Salman, and Amir, they work on profit sharing basis. Salman doesn't really include his fee in the production budget of his films. Whatever the film earns via satellite and digital rights and music rights, he takes everything. Music rights, not really. Satellite and digital, that's entirely Salman Khan's. And that really depends on how great the film is. Shah Rukh, for example, has a profit sharing share of 65%. The rest of the percentage goes to the co-producer. Amir Khan has a similar profit sharing share. He has close to 75% of profit share, 35% goes to the co-producer. The three Khans largely work on profit sharing. They don't take any upfront money, unlike an Akshay Kumar, who, according to various sources in the industry, charges anywhere between 130 to 140 CR per film. So an Akshay Kumar will directly take an upfront fee that, hey, I'm doing this film and these are my fees. So, for example, if I was the producer, if I wanted Akshay Kumar for a film, I have to pay him separately 130 crores so that he agrees to star in my film. And then whatever my production budget is, then adds on to his fee. He does not share. There is no profit sharing in Akshay Kumar films. Someone like an Ajay Devgan doesn't really have a fixed fee structure. He oscillates between profit sharing and upfront fee. For example, if he's doing a film with Rohit Shetty, who is long-time collaborator, they've done films like the Golmaal series, the Singhams and Suryavanshis of the world. So with Rohit Shetty, he is in profit sharing. Otherwise, most of his films, he also prefers an upfront fee. And that also really depends on the kind of film that there is. But otherwise, he's somewhere in the bracket of 65 to 70 CR as upfront fee, similar to that of Hrithik Roshan, who also charges the same amount. Even though Hrithik Roshan charges upfront fee, from what I've heard and from what several people in the industry told me, with War, which was a Wire film, a Yash Raj Films production, he was in profit sharing. So all these major stars generally are into profit sharing depending on who they're working with, what's the setup like.
The discussion around the reassessment of star fees is an important one, considering how with a larger fee for the stars, the production budget of film usually bloats up. The Indian Express Group's executive director, Anant Goenka, asked the same question to actor-producer Alia Bhatt at the recently held Express Adda in Mumbai. Here's an excerpt.
In your assessment, and again, I'm asking you to put the producer back, your producer hat on, will we finally see some correction in the price that stars charge? Because so much of the money is just going to one person. And if one person is not able to deliver those opening weekend numbers, that is the investment for which you're doing.
Yeah, I agree. On that, I agree. I think that should happen in general. But yes, I do understand that the content is bringing people to the theatres. The star value or the stardom or the star in is a layer, but it's not the only thing that's bringing anyone into the theatres. So yes, for that aspect. But if you ask me that maybe some reassessing in general needs to happen, I'm sure all the producers are thinking that way.
I think that's a big statement to make. I think the first time I've heard somebody in Bollywood, and again, not my field, but say that there has to be a correction. First time I'm hearing a star saying that.
But I think that even a star is thinking that way. And let me tell you, it happens many times when actors charge a certain fee for a film and a film doesn't do well, they don't take the balance fee. They sometimes give their money back. But uska hum log PR nahi kar rahe. But hota hai. It's happened many times, so many examples in front of me where you don't land up taking the money if the film has not done the money at the box office. So it's not like nobody's fleecing anyone.
You can listen to this entire interaction on our podcast, Express Conversations. The link is in the description of this episode. A similar feeling is echoed by others in the Hindi film industry. Here's Anurag Kashyap and Taapsee Pannu from an interview that Justin did recently.
Well, every film has to be worked backwards. I'm saying you have to assess your own film to decide if I want to do a certain kind of a movie and I know that movie won't make as much money. Then me coming and saying मेरे को तो वो वाली फीस चाहिए जो उस फिल्म में मिली थी क्योंकि वो बड़े बजट की फिल्म थी. I'm being stupid. See, Hollywood has figured it out. And they're very transparent. India में transparency भी नहीं है. So I'm saying people will work on backends if there's transparency. Transparency नहीं है. So if there's transparency, then actors will start taking backends. If the film makes money, I'll take money. But the problem is a lot of them only work for money upfront and they front load the film. And every idea can't become that big that it is front loaded. और यहाँ पे chance भी नहीं लेते.
I've done that twice in Telugu films of mine. Yeah. And ended up making money. I didn't charge a single rupee because they were small concept-driven films. And there was no big hero part of it. It was me and an ensemble cast of supporting actors. So twice I did that. And I only charged when they made money, I took a percentage of it.
40% to 50% of my films have charged nothing. Because, the idea is to get the film made.
Right. Justin, that brings me to my next point. Now, it is often seen that to accommodate big, costly names in a project, the stars, it's usually the lesser known, lesser popular actors that see a pay cut. Now, do we have any examples of this, or is this even true?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Because if I can give you an example, producer on the condition of anonymity had told me that when he was mounting a film with a big star and the star quoted a price, and this producer felt if my film will become too expensive if I get this actor on board, but he really wanted that actor to be in the film. So he said, okay, well, I'll accommodate you in the film and I'll cut all my production costs. I'll make my film less expensive so that I can afford an expensive star like you. And when that happens, truly, there is a ripple effect, right? By production cost, everything goes down. Then you will start paying, quote unquote, the lesser popular star or the lesser known actors far less money. And that is true. But it's also, Anant, not limited to just the actors. Then you cut down on production costs, which is you cut down on the money of technicians, you cut down on the money of the location, you cut down your money on the VFX. There is large scale sort of reduction of money when a big star comes in a film and the producer is not able to mount the film on the same scale. That happens. And a lot of actors have also said that we have had to agree to work in a film at a far less money because the film is a big film and it was a big opportunity and there was a bigger star. So vis-a-vis, then we would get a bigger sort of reach. There are these variables which come into play at the cost of their own fee. And that is true. And I agree. That happens quite a lot.
A lot of industry insiders believe that the star remuneration problem is a symptom of a larger disease that plagues Bollywood, one of mediocre scripts. Justin recently did a story about this, and here is an excerpt of his conversation with film and television producer Pritish Nandi.
All stars are ready to work for a reasonable fee if they have a great script in front of them. The problem is nothing to do with star salaries, in my opinion, and clearly what I believe, that if you come up with a great script and you take it to any actor, they will find a way to make that film affordable. Actors are not the monsters they're made out to be. They will make it affordable. One or two may be difficult, but almost all of them will make it possible to make the film within an affordable budget if you get a great script. The problem is there are very few great scripts. If they're going to do this as a day job and not as something that is they're passionate about or they're greatly excited about, they will charge you the day job fees. So the question is, if there were great scripts going around, if there were great ideas going around, and if people wrote better scripts and made better films, anybody in the world would act in them at a fee that can be afforded.
Here's Justin again on what needs to be done to get people to the theatres.
I believe Pritish Nandi rightly said that there is a dearth of good films in Bollywood. We don't have, and largely what the trade believes is that a good film, and by good film they mean a film which connects with the masses, can never fail. If your film connects with a multiplex audience and a single screen audience, and it has that wide scale reach, there is no way your film is going to fail because people are going to flock in huge numbers to watch it on screen. But if a film does not work on these counts, there is no way to recover money. And I agree. The sentiment is truly that let's focus on making a film which is a good film. And by good, definitely a film which connects on a wider scale than ever before. Post Laal Singh Chaddha and Raksha Bandhan's debacle, both the films have flopped at the box office. Both films were headlined by famous 90s stars. If they can't run a film today, naturally its implications are going to be there for everyone. And that's happening. So many projects with actors who were charging 20 crores, 15 crores, 25 crores, actors whose box office returns don't really match their salary, all the projects are now on hold because producers are really going back and like, hey, we need to figure things out. What also is so crucial today, Anand, is that your marketing should be so on point that people should feel that your film is unmissable. That I have to drag my family of four, pay a multiplex ticket price of 500 per head, buy popcorn, drink my Pepsi, and watch this large scale spectacle, and it'll be worth it. I think Anurag Kashyap recently in an interview said people are not going to watch films because they don't have money. And by that, he meant that people are now being very cautious about kind of film they invest their money on. They need to be completely sure that, hey, this is going to give me value for money. If the word of mouth is not encouraging, if the trailer is not nice, if they are put off by the marketing, irrespective of who is headlining the film, they will not watch. Star power can also no longer guarantee you opening. It really comes down to how exciting your film is to the audience who's watching the trailer on screen.
In 2020, when India witnessed its first of the many coronavirus-induced lockdowns, the entertainment shifted from the big screens to what would definitely end up revolutionizing the industry, the OTT. The easy, comfortable access to films right on people's cell phones altered the way movies would perform at the box office. Justin, let's address the elephant in the room, OTT platforms, right? How do digital streaming platforms alter this entire equation?
When the pandemic happened, a lot of theatrical films which are meant to release in theaters shifted to OTT because there was no avenue to release it otherwise. That sort of spoiled the industry in a sense where it became quite easy for the films to be accessed at a wider scale. When the theaters opened last year, full scale in Maharashtra, the window between a film's theatrical release and its OTT premiere was just 4 weeks, which is just about a month. That, I think, which so many people in the business have been repeatedly saying, truly dented the industry. If I can give you an example, in February earlier this year, or Feb and March, Bollywood released some really nice films. We had Amitabh Bachchan and Nagaraj Manjule's Chund. We had Rajkumar Rao and Bhumi Pednekar's Badai Do. We also had a Gangubai. Now, except for Gangubai, Jhund and Badai Do did really, they were excellent films. They had great reviews going for them. One of the strongest sort of word of mouths in the first half of the year for any Bollywood films. Yet, those films didn't translate into any kind of box office magic because the problem was people felt, oh, well, it's a mid-sized small film and we're going to watch it on the OTT next month. By the time the word of mouth travels, it's already the next week and you're already in week 2. And when you're in week 2, there is a sense of lethargy which sets in. And okay, we can wait it out. We can watch it on the small screen. It's not a Bahubali that we are missing anyway. And that has truly dented. It took away the urgency of watching a film in cinema halls because there is no other way to watch it. Now take, for example, Ranbir Kapoor's Brahmastra, which is set to release on September 9th. That film is one of the most expensive films of Bollywood. That's a big screen, magical adventure, fantasy, spectacle. A film like that naturally sort of pulls in the audience with the urgency that no, this is something we have to watch it on the big screen. A film like that, anything which is big on high, sort of action, spectacle, mythological elements, those films can still open up because they promise the audience the experience of a visual delight, which otherwise any other mid-sized film naturally struggles to.
So Justin, we've talked about almost everything that we promised to talk about at the beginning of this episode about the Hindi film industry. We've discussed various problems and what the people in the industry think about them. What do they believe is the solution?
I think the solution is really pretty clear and it's right there in front of every maker in the Hindi film industry. Invest in scripts. One of the reasons why most of the Hindi films have not worked so far this year is because they were not good films. They were not films which excited the audience. They were not films which tempted them enough to get out from their homes and watch it on the big screen. They were just not films which connected at a wider level. One of the things that Pritish Nandi had told me was we also need to invest in writers. We also need to empower our writers so that they can fly with the world that they want to write, so that they are empowered enough to write the kind of films that comes from within, which is not tampered or tailored or customized to fit in a certain time. Definitely correction in terms of writing good script, definitely correction in terms of actors agreeing to come on board to headline a film at a nominal fee and then go for profit sharing. That's a model which a lot of producers are now deliberating. And also what has become truly crucial today is a solid marketing team. You cannot come with a film with a bad trailer today. The audience is truly, truly unforgiving. Right now, the Hindi film industry is going through a very strange time when they're not sure of what exactly is going to work.
Justin believes that the real loser in all this commotion and debate are the female actors.
In the chase for a good box office number and in this chase of achieving the mythical box office run, I think the biggest losers in terms of just the sheer impact of what's going to happen are going to be female actors. And I say this because except for Gangubai, which is an exception, no other film headlined by a female star has truly worked this year. What is happening right now in these very hyper-masculine, testosterone box office environment of Pushpa and Rocky Bhais of the world is that a female actors stand to lose a lot more than the male actors, because if their films don't deliver at the box office, producers will shy away from investing them in the first place. Or even if they do, they'll be like, hey, your films are only meant for OTT, not to compete at the box office with men.
You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Anant Nath Sharma, and as always, was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you want to know more about the points we talked about in today's show, we highly recommend you subscribe to Indian Express's premium offering and read Justin's article in full. You will find the link for the same in the description of this episode. If you like the show, then do subscribe wherever you get your podcast or share a link for this show with another Bollywood buff. You can also tweet to us at Express Podcast and write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.